Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike. Today I'll be drawing page 41 of episode 2 of my comic book, First Sun and Sword. This is the first page that I drew. I talked about it last week. Since I got sick, it was 25 days between drawing the last page I had drawn and then drawing this one. And that last page was the start of this action. It started on the end of the last page. Sun jumped into the air, and then he grabbed onto the guy as he was doing a flip, and he's going to sort of toss the guy over him. It's a silly move. When I thought about what he should do in this fight, I thought it would be fun to have him do this. It's something from that I used to see in Double Dragon, I think number 2 or 3. You could jump over someone, do a flip, and then toss them. And I thought that would just be fun to put in here. So that action started on the last page, and then 25 days later, I wrap up this page. And the rough pencils you're seeing in this video, the rough pencils for this, which is the thumbnailing process for me, is it was done weeks before I cleaned up and finished the pencils, which led to me forgetting what all these scribbles meant and kind of doing even more work than I needed to. That, and then kind of forgetting how heavy or how much blacks to use in the inks. After that break, it made me feel pretty rusty on this page. A little bummed out by that. And I will say that I just finished the page after this yesterday, and that one was really good. I was really happy with that one. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm better than ever, better than I was, a month ago. Even though I took that break, even though it was a rough getting back into it, I'm even better now. That's funny. There's that mental roller coaster is not very helpful. I just got to get up and do it. And it's how I do it that matters. It doesn't matter how rusty you are or how bad you may feel about it. It's how are you engaging in it? Kind of like working out, like you might not be as strong as you were or agile. But if you accept that and you just do your best and really pay attention to what you're doing, you'll just get better. It's a practice. It's what you do. So in the first panel, I wanted a close-up of the guy getting choked, Sun pulling on his necklace thing, and then Sun has already completed the flip. He's standing on the ground and has swung down, not having the guy land on his face and chest on the ground. So I didn't show very much of that throw. The lead up took 3 panels. He jumps in the air, he grabs the guy, we get a close up of the choking. But then when he gets thrown through the air, I didn't continue to show a bunch of panels of that. And it meant it was pretty important how well I conveyed that moment, the action. So the position of Sun's body and how his arms have swung down between his legs, you can tell that he has just swung. He's done a flip and then let himself continue through the motion down between his own legs, You can tell what just happened, but it's only because of how accurate, how much work I put into getting the right pose and getting that right. That's important. And I love doing comics with lots of action like this, and it becomes really important the way that I do it, that the physicality, the movements of your characters have to be really good. They get very, very complicated. These last panels are 3 panels in a row in this last tier. They are ABC. I mean, they're 3 shots in time. It's almost like an animation. So I've got the same background, but all the characters move each time. Sun is obviously the focal point that I want you to see, and he remains close to the same spot on the panel each time. So like an animation, your eye is going to be expecting him in that spot. And this is a bit of a Where's Waldo thing. You got these small figures, and you might even go back over these 3 panels. You may look at them left to right and then go back and watch each character, each person there, and how they're moving, what happened to them between each panel. So he trips one guy, he kicks another guy in the head, kicks another guy in the head, and then the 3 at the bottom, they back up. And the guy that had been thrown and landed on his chest and head, he's laying there unconscious with some blood coming out. It's not a super gory comic, but I don't totally shy from it either. Shy away from it. That middle panel, that wide panel, we have I just had a mental picture of Sun ducking while all of these spears come at him. So in an earlier page, we saw all the spears lined up pointing at him and him standing there. It's communicating visually. It isn't simply showing where people are at in space, showing what's happening. It's got a story to it. You're using these spears pointing at him as a sort of tool of a metaphor. Here, I wanted to do something similar, but now all of the spears are coming at him and overlapping over him while he ducked below them. And when it comes to flow on this page, you'll start in the top left with most of the, you got the face there at the top, near the top of that panel. That's going to draw you to that spot, and mostly negative space in the bottom, especially on the right. So the shape of his body is definitely a diagonal going towards the right, up and towards the right. But you'll probably start at his face, not down at his shoulder. You'll start at the top left. You'll see his face. And the eye of the reader might not bother looking down at his shoulder, at the ground below him. They may just go from that face and let the peripheral vision collect that bit of information around it and then move directly over, which is where everything's pointing. And right there will be Sun. And he's hunched over. He's looking towards the right. All the lines of the stone are kind of coming down in that direction too. His cape's coming up in that direction. And then the man that he just threw is kind of completing the circle. Like Sun's cape comes up there, and then that line will go through kind of the guy's legs down to his head. But yeah, you'll go from there to Sun, and then to the guy that's fallen. I left some negative space in the bottom right because I don't want your eye to go down to the right into the corner, because you're getting ready to go to the left for the next panel, reading left to right. So I've got the guy's arm coming down towards the left. So you'll probably look at him and maybe continue to the left, but I don't want you to go to the right into the dead space. So I'm using his arm to kind of point the direction I want you to go. The pencils here. Yeah, this is a scenario where there's a lot of ground. Every panel pretty much in this page is showing the ground. It's nice when I can use the sky or something else to create some different colors on the background, some different contrast, maybe brighter things. But being stuck with ground in the background, it can get monotonous, a little bit repetitive. And it also means that all I have with some pretty good sunlight too, all I have is shadows to put on figures and they're cast shadows on the ground. But if I am too heavy with their cast shadows, then it can muddy up what I want you to be looking at, like them and their actions. So I went with a broken line, a kind of very loose, abstract, shadows, cast shadows on the ground, and not very many of them. So here, this panel, it is not, I don't have Sun centered in the panel. I have him pushed towards the left. The eye of the reader, their eye, where they're looking, they're going to be following down from that soldier's arm that had fallen, down to this left side. I don't want them looking to the right at all, really, because it's empty space. I want them to go from here straight down to this panel. So I had him positioned more towards the left. And then the spears are overlapping, and I've got them coming into the panel at angles that are appealing, that seem to help also create a sense of direction and balance, of course, in the composition. Yeah, you'll see this was the part that I kind of had to redraw after such a break. I started with the most important thing. One thing that's kind of challenging in this fight scene I'm finding is scale. Sun is quite a bit smaller than these guys. So here I just erased him and pulled his head and shoulders down, like tried to make him smaller. It's tough. It's just I'm naturally inclined to make him a little too big. When I have, two figures fighting, they're similar size. It's kind of a no-brainer, but he's a child. So I have to keep double checking his scale compared to these guys. Very complicated shots here. So of course I went with more of a bird's eye view, pretty up, cameras up, looking down. I wanted you to get a good lay of the land, a good visual of the space between people, a more objective view. And it's very complicated. So we have Sun, he's on the ground basically sliding over and kicking under this guy. I needed his leg to wrap into the other guy's leg, show that he's getting tripped and maybe injuring his knee. And then these other soldiers, they're going, they're not just going to be standing there. So they're trying to stab him. So I have them all converging on his point, which is also helpful because I do want the composition to converge on his point. He's the focus. I don't want you to lose sight of him in the shot. Now, he also will have colors that no one else has that'll help him stand out. But I need them coming in attacking. But even though it's so small on the page, I don't want you to be confused. I don't want it to look like he just got stabbed. They're missing him. So how do I make sure that it looks like it's close but missing? And not creating weird tangents with his cape, with his arm, everything like that. And so the guy he tripped is now on the ground in an awkward position. And now he has spun around and kicked. He's kind of he's rolled and come around with his other leg, kicking this guy in the head. So this was another challenging kind of shot. How do I show this tiny figure getting hit in the head and falling forward, really getting hit hard, going unconscious? I need to convey all that in just the moment of impact, basically. I chose not to have Sun's foot actually hit the guy's head, like touching his head in the shot. Sometimes I will show the moment of impact like they're actually touching, but a lot of times I choose slightly after that moment, and that's the case here. It's like he's already kicked him and the guy's already falling. And hopefully that's clear to the reader, but that's what I went with there. So in the first panel, the soldiers at the bottom had stabbed at him, and now they are advancing a little bit, getting ready for another thrust, let's say. they're going to retreat as he comes around with his other, I think his other leg doing a round kick at the guy on the left. Yeah, this has been pretty fun. The next page will have some of this to comment on, but more of what I'm trying to say here. But it's fun having this superpowered boy that we don't really know how strong he is, how fast he is, and we keep discovering that bit by bit. But he's a boy. He's very scared. He's afraid of grown-ups. He doesn't know what to do. He's closing his eyes when he fights. He's holding his breath. He's punching people in stupid spots. So that's been fun to convey his terror, his fear, his emotion, and convey that even not only with moments of showing his face. We need some reaction shots, but also in his movements. How can I convey that this is someone just spinning around wildly, not really in control here? And yet, pretty effective too. Now, it's intentional that sword is not in the shot. There's no reason for your eye to go over to sword and look at him sitting there doing nothing. He was sitting on the ground. And then see him in every panel just sitting there. Like, let's keep the focus on what the focus is. I won't be away from him so long that you forget. But that was a decision I made to just not show him. On this next page, it turned out to be a useful situation because I knew I hadn't shown him in a while. What am I going to do? The focus is on these fighters. And then from off camera, sword just stabs somebody. And they were so focused in on dealing with this boy that they kind of forgot about him too. And so that's going to be a fun moment on the next page. When it comes to this kind of thing, how these expressions and these really physical moments of someone getting choked, how far to push it? I definitely like going with, my expressive cartoony style that has a lot of mistakes. I'm always improving my anatomy and getting better at doing this cartooning in even better ways. But I'm never going for more realism. It might develop more realistic anatomy or detailed anatomy that's incorrect, whatever. But it's never going for realism. There is no reference, you're going to find on how a neck would stretch and a throat get crushed. I want to push the envelope. But I see it in my work. There's this cartooniness that comes through when I do that. And how far do I want to push that? Show those Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats kind of influences or whatever. And so here, I've got the guy's eyes kind of bulging, his mouth and expression is showing this kind of shocked moment, but it's not as extreme as it could have been. Now, you'll notice that the pencils are not very detailed, so I'm drawing with the ink pen. If I could have, redone this, I maybe would have pushed that expression further, but, that's how I'm trying to get faster. I'm trying to learn how to just ink from very loose pencils. Like here with his hands, there were no hands there. I just have to ink that. It's just scribbles. The cape is not fully defined. Nothing's fully defined. I have to do it with the ink pen. And I like that. It helps it look hand drawn. It helps it have character because it definitely is improvising. It's fluid. And I like learning how to go faster and more fluid. this circle on the ground of stone is pretty challenging. I don't think I've ever had to draw this kind of thing. You have the perspective of things in the background shrinking and things in the foreground expanding as they vanish towards the vanishing point, towards the horizon. But you also have this stone that's getting larger as it. They're getting larger, and they're radiating out from a central point, the center of the circle. And so they kind of clash with each other. I need them to radiate out kind of away from a central point, but then they also have to be getting smaller at a particular tilted angle. And I'm just going by feel. What feels like the ground is pretty flat and pretty accurate, and not really trying too hard with that, because it really isn't that important. But definitely I could have gotten perfectionistic there and really meticulous, trying to get that right. And that would be like, it could be very annoying and a waste of time, in my opinion. If I did digital art, then it would be a lot easier to create this pattern and then just tilt it to whatever angle you need. But when it's done so accurately, so rigidly, that would not match the style of the way I'm drawing the figures. For it to match it, I want it to also be hand drawn. I think that's something really worth considering. When artists that have spent a lot of time drawing figures, they start drawing backgrounds, they get out the ruler, they get out the straight edges, they're getting everything perfect, and but their figures don't look like that. They don't have flat, clean lines, depending on their style. So it doesn't match, and it ends up being pretty meticulous. So when you draw, try drawing buildings like you draw your people. However it is that you do that. Reference buildings and draw them. If you draw people in a loose way, just kind of, I don't know, loose constructions and then building them, however it is that you approach it. If you were to draw a person on a page from imagination or from life, even. Try drawing environments that way, buildings that way. And you'll see that you can just let loose and let it be more expressive, just like your figures. Because you could get out the ruler and be totally perfect with your figures, but you learned you didn't have to do that, and you can learn that about your buildings too, to just, draw them. Here I decided to let his leg break the panel border. I rarely do that kind of thing. I definitely don't just do it to do it. But I wanted this panel to be pretty tight, and I realized that his leg was going to come down. The way I had drawn it, his leg was coming down and leaving the panel, and I thought, well, that's okay, because the focus is really his face. But this seemed like a really good opportunity to use his leg breaking that panel border to bring your eye right down into the next panel. You're definitely going to come right down into that next panel. And it's not getting in the way of the rest of the drawing because it just enters that negative space at the top left. Yeah, very loose pencils and then doodling people with the ink pen. It's gonna be cartoony. It's gonna have mistakes in it. That's the only way to do it in this style. And the better I get with my figures, the more practice I get, the better they're gonna look. The better I'll be at this. But it's not gonna be better now. This is sacrificing now for later. You're sacrificing immediate success for long-term success. And I think that's a good way to go. It just takes time. And we'll see. When I look at my work, and I know other people have said it too, but when I look at my earlier work, even the last issue a year ago of First Sun and Sword, but my very early work too, there's improvement. There's growth, and now I like where it's going. It's very expressive these days. But I can also see how could this get punched up even more? And one way is going to be the cleaner anatomy, just in the cleaner, not necessarily cleaner inks, but just a little bit more consistent. I kind of like the rougher ink style, but a more consistent application of the way I do shadows and different things that will be a consistent visual language that people will learn as they read my books. And then the proof will be in the pudding. So I look forward to that. That's going to be fun to see, what the result is of my attempt. But I think it'll be successful in its own way. Not everyone's cup of tea. That's one thing is, I've said it before, but I think we should. Well, maybe I should say for some of us, for me, we should think of it as building our own visual language. It is not building your own world, your own reality, your own, maybe not even your own perspective on things, but it's your own visual language, including with the way you design your panels and guide the eye and all these things. You need to learn from other people how they do it, because that makes you more fluent in languages in general. But in the end, you have to make your own language. The way you ink, the way you convey light and shadow and form and all kinds of things. The way you handle perspective and whatnot. And it takes time to develop a visual language. But if you think of it that way, it's definitely different. It's a long-term perspective, and you're developing it, you're building it. You're not judging it as you go so much. You're trying to just pay attention and learn from it. And it's not too unlike a writer, developing their own voice, their own style of. So it won't be everyone's cup of tea. Some people might get confused by it even, but when it's consistent, there's a way that you will invite people in, and they will start to understand it. It is kind of like if you were trying to communicate with someone non-verbally or something, or dance with someone when neither of you know how to dance. It's not like you're doing a waltz or something. You're just like, okay, I'm looking at you, I'm paying attention to you here. We're trying to do something fun. This is fun. Oh, you're having fun. Okay. Like it's kind of like that. You're inviting them in, and they get to experience being communicated with, communication in a new way they hadn't experienced before. And there's such great variety, such great possibility within this medium, so many different ways of communicating that's like what's awesome about comics to me, more than books, but that's just my perspective. To me, books all kind of look the same. They're in paragraphs and stuff, and blocks of text. But when you open a comic, you're getting something new for the first time. You're experiencing, it's like you visited a new city and a new culture you'd never heard of or seen before, which is nearly impossible these days thanks to the internet and stuff. But it would be like that. It is really engaging and exciting. That's what I'm looking for when I open a comic. And then, I want more from certain creators. I want to see more of that. It's like I want to experience that feeling again. But also that draws me in enough that I start to care about the story. So when it comes to the content of it, I can start to care about it. And now I want more and more of that character, more of that story. I want to see what happens next. For me, it happens in that order. Rather than, let's say, the other way around. I care about the story. So I suffer the art or whatever. Okay. I just used a rubber eraser and cleaned it up. I have started doing that before I put in the brush inks so that I have a nice white paper. I can see what it really is like, because any shading from the pencil will make me think that maybe there's more weight in certain areas than there actually is. So I clean it up first, and then I can clearly see where I need to add more weight. And you'll notice that I'm just moving around the page, adding some weight. I'll add some more. This pen doesn't have the best brush head on it and stuff, but it's so convenient. I just live with it. I live with the fact that it doesn't make the best lines compared to other, pens and brushes I've used and have. Yeah, same thing here. You'll see how I'm trying to add, but not too much. In this panel, I added more shadow underneath Sun than anybody else. The guys in the back have no shadows around them because it's busy enough on this page and they're small enough. The guys in the front, I gave them a little bit of shadow, cast shadow on the ground. But it's not going to be as the same as with Sun. So I wanted Sun to really pop on the page, so he has heavy shadows on him to help him stand out even more. And you'll see how I'm even thickening some of the lines that were done with the brush now. And that is the finished page, 41. I am so glad that I decided to do longer books. It broke a lot of bad habits when I was trying to do shorter books. You cut a lot of corners to make things fit. And now I have endless pages, to tell the story the best way I can. And so I'm learning how to tell stories better. And then in the future, I can cut it down to 10 or 20 pages if I want. I think it's better to go that way. A lot of people say with your first comic, do something really short. And I've advised the same. I get that. But there comes a point where maybe you need to do something long so that you learn, like I said, really give yourself the time and space to learn storytelling craft. And then you can work on condensing it. And that is the finished page with the colors. Sun's colors definitely help him pop and stay a focus. That's it. See you next week.